There's a lot of conversation in Washington, D.C. right now about debt and deficit in the budget that's coming up. Let me explain to you a couple of things and why this is such a big deal for us and we need to be talking about it. Two main issues with the debt we're dealing with: who owns it and how big is our debt. First issue is who owns it. If you go back to just after World War II, we had a huge debt as a nation, but the majority of that debt was financed by war bonds and treasuries and things that Americans owned and loaned to ourselves. Even as recently as 1970, 5% of all the debt in America was owned by people outside the United States. 95% of our debt was owned by people within the United States. Fast forward to now, 47% of the debt in America is financed by people from other countries. Almost half our debt is now owned by people outside the United States. So not only do we have a large debt, but a lot of the interest payments and such are being sent to other countries on it. So we're losing that here. Our second major issue: how big is our debt? $14 trillion in debt. We get so used to hearing that number that we lose track of how big it is. So let me tell you a quick story. It's the way I try to keep this in perspective. 1977, the Voyager spacecrafts were launched. Some of you may remember this time. I remember it. I was 9 years old when it was launched. And I remember thinking about how far those spaceships were going to go. They were going to go all the way to Saturn and they were going all the way to Jupiter and take pictures and send it back. But I thought it's going to be so far. It'll be in the 1980s before they ever get there. Well, those Voyager spacecrafts took amazing pictures and sent them back to Earth, but they're still going. Didn't know if you knew that. They're traveling 38,000 miles an hour, and like the Energizer Bunny of spacecraft, they're still going. Voyager has now left the solar system, and it's still sending us messages back. Now, for that spacecraft, Voyager 1, if it dropped $1 a mile, knowing that that spacecraft has already left the solar system, do you realize it hasn't dropped $14 trillion yet if it dropped $1 a mile and it's left the solar system? It will have dropped $14 trillion at $1 a mile in 41,801 more years. This debt we're dealing with is larger than we can imagine, and we have got to stop saying we'll do little tweaks. It's time for big ideas. We've got to start taking aggressively the debt on, or our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren are not going to live in a country like we enjoy and we live in, because they'll be so saddled with debt and such high taxes. So we've got a lot of decisions to make dealing with our debt and our budget. This is the moment to do it, and we are the generation to take this on.